Animism is the idea that living nature is governed by spirits. And the difference between living nature and dead nature is that nature doesn't have spirits in it. So the spirits are not physical. They are unlike bodies and other material objects, and they are intrinsically agentic and capable of experience. And our Western scientific worldview rejects the notion of spirits. This is a superstitious concept in the view of most scientists. Instead, what we are using to describe reality are mechanisms. There is this idea that computer programs are somewhat like spirits. This metaphor has been discovered multiple times, and for instance, a famous one has been formulated by Harold Abinson in The Structure and Interpretation of Computer Programs. He writes that computational processes are abstract beings that inhabit computers, and we conjure the spirits of the computer with our spells. A computational process is indeed much like a sorcerer's idea of a spirit, cannot be seen or touched, is not composed of matter at all. However, it is very real. And I get the sense that he is writing this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, that it's basically a punchy metaphor to him, that, oh my God, we have this famous fairy tale concept and our computer programs look a lot like it. And what I would invite you is to take this idea extremely seriously and basically say that spirits are literally computer programs. Right? There is a spirit running on my brain, and this spirit is a computer program that is implemented in the interactions of the physical components of my brain. In much the same way, even though it's technically quite different, to how a computer program is implemented in the circuits of a silicon chip. And the difference between living and dead systems is that living systems have self-organizing, self-perpetuating, adaptive, error-correcting software running on them. And if the software is crashing, then the living system dies. And so the important thing here is the notion of what is the important invariance. And what I mean by this is, for instance, similar to money. Some people basically say that money is just some kind of social belief, some kind of fiction that people hypnotize themselves into believing in, and it's actually not real because it's not a physical object. But the thing is, people don't need to believe in money for money to exist. You can implement a stock market using computers alone. Once money has been invented, it is structuring reality. It has causal power. And while the money does not really care about which color the paper has that it's printed on and what the fine structure is of the entities that are being used as tokens in money to represent it and so on, you cannot explain the world without money anymore. Or at least any explanation that tries to explain the world that we live in that doesn't use money is going to be dramatically more complicated because it misses this invariance that money represents. Right? So money is a causal pattern that once it's implemented is necessary to model reality and explain it. There is no simpler way to explain reality than to accept that money is actually implemented and therefore real. And I think that minds and software are in the same category. They're basically causal patterns that once they existed, structure the causal shape of physics in such a way that you cannot explain what's going on in the physical world without resorting to these categories. But you can see that the implementation uses structures that are happening in a substrate, but you cannot simply reduce it because it is missing the invariance that it happens over a large range of subset states in this particular way. Your brain doesn't really care about the individual neuron. If the individual neuron dies, your mind will try to recruit a new neuron for the purpose and train it with the functional tasks that is required to implement the mind. The individual cell doesn't care about every individual molecule. If a molecule goes astray, then the cell is trying to recruit another molecule for the same task. And so basically what I want to highlight is that our ancestors discovered the need to have words for these abstract causal structures that are themselves not physical objects, but do interface with the physical reality. And the word that our ancestors used for these for the software is spirits. And these spirits are somewhat different from the computer programs that we write because they need to be self-organizing, self-stabilizing, and self-perpetuating to exist in nature. And that means that they need to have certain properties that automatically make them agentic. And this looks very mysterious, but it's not. It's agentic software is simply a software that is set up in such a way that it can control the future. An agent is a control system for future states. And so I think that software is actually the missing component that scientists need to use to understand the mind-body problem. And at the moment, most of science still thinks that software is not an important problem. It's something that nerds do in their basement. It's not something that they need to resort to understand the reality around them. And I think that software is an absolutely crucial metaphysical concept that we need to understand reality, and our ancestors had it. And Aristotle basically describes it, the soul, as a form that is imprinting itself on the physical reality and shapes it. And I think this is exactly correct. Right? Software is not violating any principles of physics. It's not violating energy conservation or information conservation in any way, but it is real.